just to give a few thoughts about Brother Shaik Ubaid. Alhamdulillah, he's a strategic thinker, and he always raise voice for the oppressed, no matter what their background are. Maybe he's always raise his honest opinion and a honest fight against the injustices happening around the world. His thoughts and directions have helped many non-profit organizations to streamline their goals to protect the human rights. Dr. Ubaid is always a friend and guide to a person like me. I admire his knowledge and thinking skills. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to and God for his protection. Without due, I request Dr. Ubaid, Dr. Shaik Ubaid to give a speech today. So he will be giving a speech in the topic obligation and duties of Indian diaspora living in North America. So it's in our context, it's Canada. Welcome, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Brother, you are on mute.
I'm on mute. Assalamu alaikum and peace to you all. Thank you, Brother Farooq, for this kind and exaggerated introduction. Perhaps you are a poet. And one correction, I'm not a neurosurgeon, I'm a neurologist. And I am really grateful to you all for letting me participate in this auspicious occasion of celebrating the Independence Day, the Yawm-e-Azadi of my homeland. And your love for your homeland, your watan, is increased manyfold when you live away from it. The farther away you are and the longer time that you spend away from it, the more you would love and cherish your motherland. So thank you for letting me participate in this auspicious occasion. When I was asked to speak in this event, I was a little hesitant in the beginning for two reasons. One was I do not live in Canada, and I always think that telling things with a should or a must as an advice to people of a land that where you do not live is not really that appropriate, because you are not in their shoes. But then I thought US and Canada are almost similar. They are both open democracies and both are very influential countries and both are neighbors, so maybe I can take the liberty. And the other reason was that last week was my week of call, and it's usually I do 1 week call a month, and it's really very busy, so I thought I will not be able to prepare, especially with other things going on, such as the congressional races here where Hindutva is trying to infiltrate. But then I thought maybe it's a good opportunity that I will present and submit some thoughts and start some kind of a discussion so that on the social media, so that I can learn from your input. So hopefully you all will start this discussion because the country that we were born in, the country that we love so much, our motherland, needs us even more than ever before. So it's an important topic. I always say that not only to plan for the future, but to live successfully in the present, we should know the past. And that's where my love for history derives its energy from. So let us go back a little bit of time on what is India and who are Indians before, and also a little bit of Indian Muslim history. The ancient Indians were the first generation, were the first wave of migration out of Africa around 50,000 years to 60,000 years, who came to India and then went beyond. And the descendants of those Indians are the Adivasis and the tribals. And then many thousand years later, people from southwest Iran came and settled in the Indus Valley and created a beautiful and an ancient civilization called the Indus Valley Civilization. And then around 3,500 years ago, the Aryan people from the Caucasus and Western Central Asia came to India around the same time they went to Europe. And later, some more Aryans came, Scythians, etc. And all these people, some came as invaders, some came as settlers, but they settled down in India. They made India their home. And this waves of people coming into India continued because it is human nature. Human species has always been a migratory species, going and migrating to land for more opportunities, and that's why we are here also in North America. So this is a very ancient tradition, and I'm saying this because there is a great question going on: who is actually an Indian and who is a foreigner? So nobody in India is a foreigner. Everybody came from outside, but they all became Indian. And then what is India? This land south of Himalayas and east of Hindu Kush was never called India. India was the region referred to by Persians and later Arabs to the land around the Sindh River and the western part of modern India. So the first time India was called India or Hind were by the Muslims. If you look at history, most of the Pakistan region was always part of the Persian Empire, except for a brief period in the Mauryans when Chandragupta Maurya, his son and his grandson Ashoka, because Chandragupta Maurya had defeated the followers, the remnants of Alexander's Greco-Persian Empire in Iran. Otherwise, that part was always part of Persian Empire. So this is the history of a brief history of people of India. And then when you come to Muslims have came to India from the very beginning of Islam, because Arab traders were trading with South India and Gujarat, West India, as well as Far East. So Islam came to India as traders in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And later, a few decades later, when the Muslim armies entered Persia, automatically the Makran region, those provinces which are part of the Persian Empire, modern day Balochistan and Western Sindh, etc., and Afghanistan, became part of the Muslim Khilafat. 711, we all know Muhammad bin Qasim came to Sindh to liberate some hostages. And then much later, when Muslims came in and formed an empire in India, it was Muhammad Ghori around 1190 or so, 1197, the Battle of Tarain. And then Muslims, for the first time, united the north and the south of India. Even when you read the early English writers, they will say the English army was in Deccan and later it moved to Hindustan, or from Hindustan the army came to Deccan or Carnatic. So there were two parts. South of India was called Deccan and north of India was Hindustan. So it was the Muslims for the first time under Alauddin Khilji and then Muhammad bin Tughlaq that they united this and call it one nation. If the Muslims had not come to India and made it one nation, India still would be like Europe. Multiple countries, multiple religions, because there is no such thing as one religion at that time. Different people had different gods and different languages. So the contribution of Muslims to India is great. They not only united the land as one country, but they also contributed greatly to its civilization, to its architecture, to its economy. India under Mughals for the first time became the largest economy in the world, overtaking China. Otherwise, India and China were the top two economies till the British came. And for the first time, there was a people who came to India who did not become Indians. They came to loot India. It was colonialism. It was completely different than the Aryans. It was completely different than the Dravidians, who are the forefathers of our Dalit brothers and sisters, who predate Aryans, and the Muslims, who included the Persians, the Turks, the Arabs, and many other people, even Africans, came to India. So this is the history of India and the Indian Muslims. And this is the contribution of Indian Muslims. There were also failures in the sense that when we came when our ancestors or ancestors of Muslims came to India, and they were not in huge number. So they're dependent on the educated class in India to do the bureaucratic work. And because of India's caste system, it was the Brahmins who were educated. Unfortunately, the Dalits were kept away from any kind of education. They were treated worse than humans, worse than animals. So unfortunately, instead of bringing that liberation ideology that they had brought to North Africa and Persia, they did not implement it to that extent in India. So the caste system continued. So that was one of the biggest failures of these Muslim kings. Remember, they came as for a better economic reason, for to have more land, bigger kingdom, etc. They did not come to impose Islam or to propagate Islam as such. That's why they were not as focused on liberating the Dalits, even though the Muslim scholars and some kings and the Sufis, etc., did present Islam to lots of Dalits, and they became Muslims. So the largest part of Indian Muslim population is of much ancient origin than the ruling class, and they are from the Dalit background. So this was the failure. So having dealt briefly with what happened, and let's come to the current affairs. You have already attributed to it, the freedom struggle where the Muslims participated a whole lot, and the English took the country from the Muslims, so they were very anti-Muslim than anti-Hindus. So the freedom struggle, the contribution of Muslim was way much larger in proportion than their population. So then we come to the freedom, the moment of freedom that we are celebrating, the tryst with destiny, the Jawaharlal Nehru's famous speech. And the Muslims believed in India, believed in the Indian constitution, and they decided to stay back. Some Muslims under Jinnah realized or thought that India will not be safe for Muslims when he saw the attitude of Hindu leaders in the Congress. So he had left Congress. The man who was the proponent of Hindu-Muslim unity, the most secular person in Congress, Jinnah, he decided to have a separate land to have Muslims. We have nothing to do with that, nor do we blame them. It was their right, just like Czechoslovakia broke into two, just like Yugoslavia, they decided to have. But our decision was to stay in India and to continue contributing to it, and we had done that. And now we come to the present situation where it cannot be called anything else but fascism. It's not majoritarian democracy or anything. It's pure fascism, because RSS was formed after their leadership met with Mussolini. Later, Hitler became their role model. Read their books, and that's what is happening in India. So India needs us even more, just like we gave our blood, our tears, our sweat for the freedom struggle to save India's pluralist ethos, to save Indian democracy, to save the rule of law. We need to, even though we are far away from India. And that's where our contribution will come, because we live in very powerful countries, you and I. And if we educate our fellow citizens here in the West, if we educate the media, if we continuously talk to the politicians, if we attend interfaith meetings, and we make alliances and tell them about the land of Gandhi, what it is becoming now. Recently, when we had the last celebration here, was the 26th of January, the other big holiday for Indians, the Republic Day, we had planned, and Canada also participated in having rallies in front of Indian consulates and embassies. And there in New York, a member of the board of directors of the Holocaust Center came and said that India currently is what Germany in 1933 was under Hitler, the beginning rule of Hitler. So this is people who know what they're talking about, people who do not use Holocaust very lightly, people who do not throw out Nazism very lightly. These are the people, our brothers and sisters here, who are agreeing that India is going through a very critical, very dangerous phase. So if we increase this awareness, and if we bring economic and political pressure, that will help our brothers and sisters, Muslims and non-Muslims, our country, the rule of law there, the democracy, to get some breathing space. Remember, the fight will be fought there, and they are already doing it. Look at Shaheen Bagh, look at all the college girls and boys leading that struggle before the coronavirus struck. And the price they are paying when the world attention has been diverted by other news, Trump stealing the news every day, and then the corona pandemic, occupying most of the news headlines. All these leaders have been apprehended and under false pretext and accusations put in jail. But the struggle goes on. So our work here is of so much importance to give them some breathing space so that they can continue their struggle and try to save India before it's too late. So that should be our primary obligation, to bring this pressure, to increase awareness. Remember, you know, India always stood up for Palestine. India always stood up for South Africa. So because it's not an internal affair, human rights is a universal value. So do not let people say that you are, bringing, washing the dirty linen outside. That is our obligation. That is the obligation of every human beings. That was India did to South Africa, and we are doing that. It's completely normal. It's completely moral. It's our obligation. So do not hesitate. And then, of course, once you have the security of life and property and and honor and everything there established, rule of law established, then our focus should be uh, you know change, and the primary focus, which is right now is a very important focus but may not be the primary focus, is helping the downtrodden, the poor sections, the Muslims, the Dalits, and whoever is downtrodden. But the charity starts from our home, establishing education institutions, strengthening their economy, and helping them become economically empowered. So those are the things that will be very important, which still continue because we have been doing that before fascism took over. And fascism took over for lots of reasons. This is not the part of my talk. The third important thing that you can do is that India is respected in the world because of what other leaders did. Gandhi is a controversial figure, but still he increased the stature of India in the West. Jawaharlal Nehru increased the stature of India in the West. And when we came to here, we were respected because of that. So we should continue to increase that stature by bringing the Indian experience here. Indian experience in the sense that India is the first land of migrants where people from everywhere came and they became Indians with equal citizens. So the same thing is happening in Canada. So we should bring it starting from our own community. Remember, there was a Moghalpura, there was a Turkish place, there was a Persian place. People used to live separately. Over centuries, they became one Muslim, one Indian Muslim. You do not have Mughals, you do not have Turks, you do not have Indian Muslims. Everybody has become an Indian Muslim. So that which took centuries in Canada and in America has to be done in decades. We have to break these ethnic barriers between South Asians and Arabs and Far East and whites and blacks. So we have that experience. It's in our genes. And similarly, we have the experience and it's in our genes to live as a minority in a secular democratic country. Nobody else does it in Canada or in the US. So we should be in the leadership level. Our voice should be in the leadership in the in the Muslim community in Canada. So that is also your obligation, because when you do that, when you work in Canada as leaders, not as followers, because you have that obligation because of your experience, you increase your stature, you increase your visibility, and when you talk about India, people will listen to you more. So in that way, instead of just relying and focusing mostly on the economic reasons that we came here, we should continue to think about of our religious obligation, that is to be the best possible human beings, taking care of our neighbors, and then not forgetting the land we came from, not forgetting that land needs us even more than ever before, so that we can make a brighter future for our children in Canada and US because of our good work here, but also make the future brighter for all Indians, especially Muslims and Dalits. So this should be our thoughts and our focus, and our discussion should continue on that. How do we increase our visibility? How do we increase our leadership in the Muslim community, in the Canadian community at large? And how do we strengthen the democratic struggle that is again started in India? It's a freedom struggle from internal fascism. And remember, history teaches us, and I will end with that, history teaches us that whenever fascism took root, it always required outside help to uproot it. Because the regime will be so brutal that it will crush everything that is trying to oppose it inside. So these days, the outside pressure comes in the form of economic pressure and political pressure. And if you are organized, if you use the organizations of yours and similar organizations, coordinate and make alliances with other faith groups at the grassroots and put pressure on the politicians and educate the media, we would have done our job. With that, I wish you again a very happy Independence Day, Yom Azadi Mubarak. Or yeah, Urdu is one of the beautiful languages. Like every other language in India is beautiful, but this is the only language that is being erased. That's why I brought in a little bit of Urdu. You have a diverse group of people there, um, but that was the reason. And again, thank you so very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ubaid. I think one of the reason why we had this program is there are many were really upset about what's happening in India and how we can what is it that left for the oppressed communities like Muslims, Dalits, especially what is it that we are going to celebrate? So the answer is we do not want the fascism to win. We do not want the fascism want to alienate the Muslims and Dalits. So we do not want that them to give them a victory. So we want to tell our narrative. We want to tell our stories. I think that's what we learned from Dr. Ubaid today about we are not aliens who just jumped into India. We are the people of the soil. We are the aboriginals. We are the real aboriginals. We have more rights than the Aryans who came to these regions. So I think then with that, we have put our blood to win this freedom, and we are not hypocrites. So with that, we have more rights to celebrate our independence than the rest of the rest of the oppressors who are trying to name India as them, not us. So with that, I sincerely thank Dr. Ubaid, and I've been following his tweets and his videos for a long time, and he's a blessing for our community. I continue to pray for him, and I request all of you to do the same.
Thank you.
Farooq bhai, if I can just update everyone on the effort that we are doing with Dr. Shaik Ubaid. First of all, Dr. Shaik Ubaid, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so very much for that eloquent speech. You really summarized the whole history of centuries into like half an hour. That was really kind of you. So just FYI for everyone, we have started a strategic session with Dr. Ubaid for the benefit of the community, especially for the young minds. So we will continue with that series. Brother Farooq, please stay tuned. I will be sharing the information. It's also a Zoom meeting for 1 hour. So we have started this series every month. We did it last month. We have a recording of that. I will be creating a share and then sharing that strategic thinking video with everyone. And also we will be doing it again in this month of August. So please stay tuned. So as Brother Farooq rightly said, we have jewels in our community, and Dr. Shaik Ubaid is one of them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and preserve them. So that's all I wanted to just add to that. And thanks again, Brother Farooq and team, for organizing such a wonderful program, and really keep up the good work that you're all doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Nasser. Thanks for your kind words. Thank you so much. You're always a supporter. So we'll move on to the next speaker now. Our next speaker is Siddharth Valichallah. Siddharth is a writer, producer, and educator from Indian Dalit community. He currently lives in Los Angeles, USA. So Siddharth immigrated to US in 2003. He discovered that Americans are only aware of a single Indian narrative propagated by the upper caste Hindus. As if, both here and abroad. So this completely eliminated the Dalit narrative, as if Dalits never existed and made no contribution to our heritage. So this is where he Siddharth strives to right this injustice by making Dalit voices heard and by sharing a version of India that is true to its diverse nature. The Dalits are the real aboriginals of India, and Muslims, majority of the Muslims today, we were Dalits. We embraced Islam from this persecution that happened in India through public. So Siddharth is making this educations in US through public discussions, film, and publishing. He's engaging